or so years of AMGEN's existence, it really started with specific therapies that were addressed towards supporting oncology treatments, and that's really branched out much more broadly into a whole area of different therapeutic areas. In fact, 30,000 employees. We're headquartered in Thousand Oaks, which is a short drive from Los Angeles, California, but we have a whole area of global sites in the US, but also globally. Just as an example, I'm not based in Thousand Oaks, I'm based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Boston. That's where I've been for the last 9 years since I've been in AMGEN. One of the most impactful things for me as an individual and why I do what I do and why I've been doing this for the last close to a decade is really our mission, right? Which is every patient, every family. And that's really translated and expanded over the last 40 decades to the point where we reach over 15 million patients annually. And this extends to over 100 countries around the world. And so that work doesn't end when you have the first therapy approved. It really continues for years after that to ensure expansion across the world, but then also understanding how can we do what we do more swiftly, more efficiently, and more quickly. So what are the key focus areas? And I really like this in the next slide. The foundation really is trying to find a mechanism to address some of the most challenging and debilitating disease conditions out there. So what are really the toughest diseases around the world? That's really what all of us try to do in our day-to-day role. We play a small part in that broader mission. The second piece is enhancing how the medicines and therapies that we develop, how can they be advanced more swiftly, how can they be more broadly distributed, how can they be manufactured for those of you who are chemical engineers and chemists out there, how can that be done more efficiently and effectively. And then all of this translates into advancing health access more broadly. I'd love to just flash this slide. This is a whole area of what are current approved therapies and a whole area of therapeutic areas. I don't mean to go into each individual one. The reason I like flashing this slide is every year that I've given a version of the stock, there are more names on this slide, and I've been doing this for several years now, and so it's really nice to see the progression, and that is so motivating on what I do on a day-to-day basis. So tying it back to what I said maybe 2 minutes ago, why do we do what we do? Why do I do what I do? And it ties really back into our mission, which is to serve patients. And you hear this later during some of our conversations, but also if you go to our careers page, if you go onto the AMGEN pages, you see the term every patient, every time. And that really ties back into the broader mission and the aspiration, right? That's the why we do what we do. The other two components are what are we actually doing, right? And then the second one is how are we doing? And the reason I wanted to touch upon these two because as I was coming out of graduate school, there were elements of these that were very resonant and helped me better understand what is it that I want to do, but also what is it that I don't want to do, right? So that's really the intent of the next two slides. We talked about the mission, we talked about the aspiration, and these are just a couple of areas that really embody the fabric of what's our strategy. I wanted to touch upon the first two and then the fourth one, because I think those are most relevant based on the folks who raised their hands earlier. the bedrock of developing new therapies is understanding the very fundamental disease biology and pathology, and establishing that that understanding is truly causal to the symptoms that are associated with that indication. And so internal innovation, which is the first block. I hope folks all the way at the back can see it with the contrast. If not, there are seats all the way in the front. You can always come up front. That's foundational to understanding how the disease biology progresses, and that happens within our research organizations that are spread across the globe. The second component is also understanding how can we partner externally and continue to build on that innovation. And so the first two buckets are really complementary because it's an innovation that happens within AMGEN, but also innovation that happens externally that we have the privilege and the opportunity to participate in. And then the fifth one, is manufacturing excellence. One of the elements that's made working in operations at AMGEN so motivating and so inspiring is that we really have advanced how manufacturing of biotherapeutics can be executed, right? All the way from how can you modulate titers in bioreactors to how can you efficiently execute purification such that you're able to manufacture a given process efficiently, effectively, and swiftly, but then also ensuring that that is sustained for the 50 programs or 60 programs that folks might be working on during a period of 1 year, right? So that really goes back to establishing platforms that can be applied across various programs, but not having to redo the work every single time. So that hopefully gives you a little bit of a vignette on the mission. I have the slide in here largely because of the point Laguna made earlier about the driver is to identify leaders of the future, right? Not necessarily somebody who's an engineer or a chemist. And so these are attributes that are very much the core of how activities are advanced across whatever function we might choose to be interested in. That's